Nice. What? Both of these are labeled as 3/4. Welcome to the Warrior Woodshop. My name is Mr. Rodaway, and I've answered a few questions on some forums lately and seen some misunderstandings and just non-knowing information. Now, there's nothing wrong with that. You got to learn somehow, right? About cutting dados, grooves, and rabbets on a table saw. First off, let me explain that a dado, for those that don't know, is a U-shaped channel, usually square, that goes across the grain. A groove is a U-shaped channel that goes with the grain. I always tell my students G for grain, G for groove. They're essentially the same cut, it's just what position you place the blade in. And then finally you have a rabbet, which is a two-sided groove because it's on the edge of the material. It's usually used for the back panels, glass and picture frames, or the top shelf might meet up on your cabinet that you're building. But they're all done with the same two tools. Table saw or router. The more common table saw method is what is referred to as a dado stack. I've got a couple of them here. Comes with a couple of outside blades and then a set of chippers on the inside. And then a decent set or a good set will also come with some spacers. What happens is the teeth overlap and then those spacers allow you to adjust them so that way you can get multiple thicknesses. The set that we use here is the DeWalt 7670 8-inch dado stack. It has 20 thousandths, 10 thousandths, and 5,000 spacers, so I can really dial this in. Now, wait a minute. If you are familiar with table saws, you know this is a 10-inch Utasaw, but I'm using an 8-inch dado stack. Because we're not raising the blade to 2 or 3 inches high, I hope you're not trying to cut a dado that deep. An 8-inch stack set is going to be just fine. In fact, it's the most common set out there, size out there. So what you get is a couple of outside blades, and usually one side's labeled, one side isn't. The CMT brand here is very, very obvious. It says this side out. So the reason they do that is because the teeth are a certain direction. That allows you to know which way it goes. Then you take your series of chipper cutters, and you're going to get two styles of chippers that go in the middle, a 2-tooth and a 4-tooth. I prefer the 4-tooth. That's what the DeWalt 7670 set has. We got it at Lowe's about 3 or 4 years ago. They have no longer carry this set, but it's still available online for around the $150 to $200 range. This Diablo set I think is at Home Depot. I didn't look up the price, but comparables are $110 to $150. So you get what you pay for. Again, I think the case is a little nicer here in the DeWalt one, and it's got the 4 chippers. This is the only 4 chipper set that we've used. We got 2 of them with our 2 saws here at the Warrior Woodshop 3 or 4 years ago. We've had them sharpened every year, no issues, and not sure if they don't sell this one again, we'll try to find a comparable. So the next thing you need to know is the material that you're going to be using. You saw at the introduction to the video, I've cut what I consider to be a 3/4 dado, and the MDF went in there just fine. But now I'm taking 3/4 cabinet grade plywood, and there is a wobble. You know, the same dado, I mean, is too loose. That's because for some reason lumber manufacturers or plywood manufacturers make cabinet grade plywood 23-30 seconds. I don't understand why. It's a mystery I think that'll never be solved. It probably saves millions of dollars in the lumber industry by cheating us out of 130 seconds. Because what's interesting is particle board and MDF come 3/4. Even 3/4 Baltic birch is true to 3/4. But you go with the cabinet grade plywood and it's 23-30 seconds. So how do we remedy that? First off, when you're setting up your dado blade, you need to know which material you're using. And dado blades or stack sets will come most of the time with a 1/16 chipper. So then that puts you a 16th under. That refers back to the spacers. You will have to do some test cutting to see where or how many of what size spacer you're going to need. That's one of the things I really like about this particular 7670 dado set. It actually comes with a 330 seconds. We've dialed this thing in there. It works perfect. In fact, we'll change the blade here and show you the difference in the cut. So if you can, spend a little extra, especially if you're using cabinet grade plywood, and find a set that comes with a 330 second chipper. Otherwise, you're gonna have to be playing ring around the rosy and find which spacers. All right, I want to make sure we follow table saw safety protocols and make sure your saw is unplugged anytime you're changing a blade. If you're new to table saws, I do have a full 30-minute video on how to use a table saw, ins and outs, that we used during our COVID, and we still use it as a preview video for our students before we do our live demo in class. So check that video out if you're new to table saws. It teaches you a lot about them. We do have a couple of shorter videos on when to use a push stick and how the saw stop works, so be sure to check those out. One of the things you might not know about a table saw when you're going to dados is you're going to need a different throat plate. This is one of those hard, it's not really acrylic, I can't think of the type of plastic, but it's one we bought at one of the woodworking shows, and it's got some set screws to raise it. And it came out as a zero clearance, and then we've cut it 3/4 wide with our dados since then. You should also have some sort of stabilizer and then your arbor nut. One thing to keep in mind when you're changing your blades is your table saw left-handed threaded. Most of them are. There are a few out there that are still right-handed threaded. What I mean by that is right-handed threaded is righty-tighty. Left-handed threaded is actually opposite. Left is tightened, right is loosened. So make sure you check with your manufacturer on that. All right, I've got the arbor raised up, blade height as high as it'll go, just to make the arbor more accessible. So I've got my first outside blade. This one, there's words on one side, nothing on the other, and down here it says this side out. So I'm going to position this one so the words are on the outside, slide that over, and if you take a look at the teeth, they're coming towards me. Okay, the flat side is towards you. Now before we were using 3/4, so I put 4 of these 1/8 chippers on. What you want to make sure is the teeth again are coming towards you, and if you notice the tooth on it is flat on the top. What you want to do is position this, and these are spaced just right, so the tooth falls halfway in line with one of the other teeth, so they're not contacting each other as it comes around. And they move a little bit, so put it right in the center to start with. Okay. It does not matter which order. Since I'm doing the 23-30 seconds, I usually skip every other one. It's kind of a personal preference. Whoop. Glad I noticed that one. The teeth were on backwards. There we go. And the last one is going to be the 3/30 seconds to adapt for the cabinet grade plywood. All right, again, none of the teeth are in contact with each other. I take my other outside blade, again 8-inch diameter, this side out, carefully slide it on and position it to where none of the teeth are contacting each other. Follow up with my blade stabilizer or blade washer, and then lay the finger limbo. This is an older saw, so it uses good old redneck engineering to tighten it. 7/8 blade, 1970s unisaw. You don't have to wrench on this like the Hulk, because it will tighten itself as it goes. So just a good snugging there. All right. And then we'll lower our blade height and drop in our insert. So there we go. Finally, we're going to position our blade height. I'm not worried in particular height now, but what I usually do is put a mark on the side of it. That way I can lower my blade down. And then the last thing I do while it's unplugged is give it a little arc to try to find the highest point of the blade and make sure it's not going to cut too far in. Okay, that looks about halfway. Now everything's set back up. Get our saw plugged back in. Little pro tip, what you could do is set yourself up a jig here. This is 3/4. You could say the 2 outside and 4 1/8. And we'll make another groove here and we'll call it the 23-30 seconds. And we'll say, you know, our 2 outsides So just little tips and tricks over the years that I've learned can save you some frustration down the line. All right, so I use this knife this time and make our cut. All right, 3/4 plywood or 3/4 MDF does not fit. We didn't expect it to, but the 3/4 lumber grade, just a little bit loose, but acceptable for cabinet making. I really want to dial it down. I could play the spacer game. So this one is what we're referring to as 23/32. So we got the two outside. We got 3 1/8 and 1 3/32. So basically I could come over here and have the students, that fits in there, that's the one I want to use. So I'm going to use two of that. You know, this is obviously too loose. So you can continue to make different setups, jigs, and then have this with your table saw. So that is what it takes to make your dado blade match up with 3/4 lumber grade plywood, cabinet grade plywood I should say, when it's really 23/32. So hopefully you got something out of this. Again, be sure to check out our table saw safety video. This one may have not been the most exciting, but hopefully got some information to those of you that are brand new to table saws or brand new to dados. They are a staple in a lot of woodworking projects. It's one of the things we teach in our second semester or our first year after they learn pocket screws and things like that. They go on to dados and glue ups. So it is something you're going to use frequently if you do a lot of furniture building. So thanks for watching. Please subscribe if you haven't done so. And after you've changed the blade and got everything set up right, go out and make some sawdust.